Sometimes a song just needs a second chance. The 70s gave us some of the most memorable music ever recorded, but not every classic started out as a hit. Some songs flopped when they first came out, sitting on shelves or getting lost in the shuffle. Then something changed. A re-release, a new audience, or just plain luck. And suddenly that forgotten track was everywhere. These are 10 flop songs from the 70s that turned into hits. Number 10, Dream On by Aerosmith. When Aerosmith released Dream On in 1973, it went absolutely nowhere. The song peaked at number 59 on the Billboard Hot 100, which for a debut single from a new band was disappointing, but not disastrous. Columbia Records barely promoted it, and most people who heard it thought it was too soft, too piano-driven, not what rock radio wanted at the time. Steven Tyler had written the song years earlier, sitting at his father's piano. It was personal, vulnerable, with that soaring vocal that would become his trademark. But in 1973, nobody was ready for it. Aerosmith was trying to establish themselves as a hard rock band, and here was this ballad that didn't fit the image. The band kept touring, kept building their audience the old-fashioned way, city by city, club by club. By 1975, they'd had success with Sweet Emotion and Walk This Way. They were legitimate rock stars now, with fans who wanted to hear everything they'd done. Columbia decided to give Dream On another shot. In 1976, they re-released it, and this time everything was different. The song climbed to number 6 on the Hot 100, becoming one of the year's biggest hits. It established the template for the power ballad, influenced countless bands, and became Aerosmith's signature song for decades. All because someone decided to give it a second chance 3 years after it flopped. Number 9, Layla by Derek and the Dominoes. Eric Clapton poured his heart into Layla. The song was about his unrequited love for Pattie Boyd, who was married to his friend George Harrison at the time. The full version, with Duane Allman's guitar and that beautiful piano coda, runs over 7 minutes. When the album came out in December 1970, it was a commercial flop. Atlantic Records tried releasing a heavily edited version as a single in early 1971, cutting it down to under 3 minutes. It barely scraped into the top 50, peaking at number 51. The album didn't sell, the band broke up, and Layla seemed destined to be a forgotten track on a forgotten album. But the song had something that couldn't be denied. Radio DJs kept playing it, particularly the full version. People who heard it couldn't forget it. By 1972, Atlantic was putting together a compilation called The History of Eric Clapton, and they included the full version of Layla as a single to promote it. This time it worked. The song hit number 7 in the UK and number 10 in the US. It became one of rock's most beloved songs, instantly recognizable from those opening guitar notes. 20 years later, Clapton's acoustic version from MTV Unplugged gave it yet another life. But it was that 1972 re-release that saved it from obscurity. Number 8, Maggie May by Rod Stewart. Here's one of the most famous B-sides in rock history. Rod Stewart recorded Maggie May for his 1971 album Every Picture Tells a Story. When it came time to release a single, the record label chose Reason to Believe as the A-side, with Maggie May stuck on the back as filler.
Oh, Maggie, I couldn't have tried anymore.
The label promoted Reason to Believe, sent it to radio, did everything right. And it became a minor hit, reaching the lower end of the charts. But something strange started happening. Radio DJs kept flipping the single over and playing Maggie May instead. They liked it better. Their listeners liked it better. And nobody had seen it coming.
Oh, Maggie, I couldn't have tried anymore.
Stewart himself thought Maggie May was just album filler, nothing special. The mandolin solo was played by the album's producer, Rod Argent, who just happened to be in the studio. The whole thing felt thrown together. But audiences connected with the story, the melody, Stewart's vocal performance.
You stole my heart, I couldn't leave you if I tried.
By October 1971, Maggie May was number 1 in both the US and UK. It stayed at the top for 5 weeks in America, launched Stewart's solo career into the stratosphere, and became one of the most played songs of the decade, all because DJs ignored the A-side and played what they actually liked.
Oh, Maggie, I couldn't have tried anymore.
Number 7. The Tears of a Clown by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles.
Tears of a clown when there's no.
Smokey Robinson and Stevie Wonder wrote The Tears of a Clown back in 1966, inspired by the Italian opera Pagliacci. It appeared on the Miracles' 1967 album Make It Happen as just another album track. Motown didn't release it as a single. It just sat there for 3 years, while the Miracles toured and released other music. By 1970, the group's popularity in the UK was fading. Motown's British distributor needed a new single to keep interest alive, so they asked Karen Spreadbury, an EMI secretary who ran a Motown fan club, to pick something from their catalog. She chose The Tears of a Clown. The song went to number 1 in the UK in September 1970. Motown in America took notice and released it as a single there, where it also hit number 1 in December. Suddenly, this 3-year-old album track was one of the biggest hits of the year, giving the Miracles their first number 1 since Shop Around a decade earlier. It was also Smokey Robinson's last single with the Miracles before going solo, making it a perfect bookend to his time with the group. All because someone at a record label in England thought an album track from 3 years ago deserved another look. Number 6. I Want You to Want Me by Cheap Trick. Cheap Trick released I Want You to Want Me as the lead single from their 1977 album In Color. It went nowhere. The studio version was polished, almost poppy, and it didn't match the energy that made Cheap Trick exciting. Radio mostly ignored it, and the band continued grinding it out on tour. They were massive in Japan, though. When they played at the Budokan in Tokyo in April 1978, the crowd went absolutely wild. The band recorded those shows, and their label released the album, Cheap Trick at Budokan, in Japan first. It sold so well that Epic decided to release it in America in February 1979. The live version of I Want You to Want Me was completely different from the studio recording. It was faster, harder, more raw. The crowd's enthusiasm was infectious, and Rick Nielsen's guitar sounded massive. When Epic released it as a single, it shot up the charts, peaking at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. The studio version that nobody wanted became a top 10 hit just because they played it live in front of a crowd that loved them. It made Cheap Trick into arena rock stars in America and turned I Want You to Want Me into one of the decade's most recognizable power pop songs. Number 5. Freebird. Freebird is over 9 minutes long, with a guitar solo that takes up nearly half the song. When Lynyrd Skynyrd released their debut album in 1973, the label didn't even consider it as a single. Too long, too complex, not radio-friendly. The album did okay, but Freebird was just an album track that fans at concerts kept requesting. The breakthrough came with their second album, Second Helping, and its hit single, Sweet Home Alabama. That song went to number 8 in 1974, making Lynyrd Skynyrd a household name. MCA Records decided to capitalize on the momentum and took another look at their catalog. In November 1974, they released an edited version of Freebird as a single, cutting it down to about 4.5 minutes. Even shortened, it was still longer than most radio-friendly tracks. But radio programmers took a chance, and the song clicked with audiences, reaching number 19 in early 1975. Years later, a live version from their One More from the Road album gave the song yet another chart run in 1977, hitting number 38. But it was that 1974 release, a full year after the original album came out, that turned Freebird from an album track into a rock anthem. And that guitar solo became something concert audiences demand to this day. Number 4. Space Oddity by David Bowie. David Bowie released Space Oddity in July 1969, timed perfectly with the Apollo 11 moon landing. It was brilliant marketing, and the song did moderately well in the UK, reaching number 5. But in America, it barely registered. And even in Britain, it faded quickly once the moon landing excitement died down. Bowie kept evolving, kept experimenting with his sound and image. By 1972 and 1973, he was Ziggy Stardust, a genuine rock star with a devoted following. RCA decided to re-release Space Oddity in 1973, and this time, it broke into the US Top 15. People were ready for Major Tom now in a way they hadn't been 4 years earlier. But the real vindication came in 1975, when another UK reissue took the song all the way to number 1 in Britain, 6 years after its original release. It was Bowie's first British number 1 single, achieved with a song most people had forgotten about. The song's themes of isolation and disconnection resonated differently in the mid-70s than they had at the end of the 60s. Space Oddity shows how timing matters. The song itself never changed, but audiences did. And when they were ready for it, they made it a hit twice over. Number 3. Spirit in the Sky by Norman Greenbaum. Norman Greenbaum recorded Spirit in the Sky in 1969, and it was an immediate hit in some markets, but took a while to catch on nationally. The song has this distinctive fuzzy guitar sound, gospel-influenced lyrics about Jesus, and a driving beat that doesn't quite fit into any one genre. It was released in December 1969 and slowly climbed the charts through early 1970. By April, it had reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, spending 15 weeks in the top 100 total. The song's journey from release to hit took months rather than weeks, which was unusual for the era. What made it stick was that unique sound. The fuzz-tone guitar was everywhere in rock music, but nobody had combined it with gospel themes quite like this. Greenbaum was Jewish, writing a Christian rock song, which added to the strangeness. Radio didn't quite know what to do with it at first, but audiences kept requesting it. Spirit in the Sky became Greenbaum's only major hit, making him one of the decade's memorable one-hit wonders. But that one hit has had remarkable staying power, covered by numerous artists and featured in countless movies and commercials. It just needed time to find its audience. Number 2. 3 Times a Lady by the Commodores.
3 times a lady.
The Commodores were known as a funk and soul band, with hits like Brick House and Easy. So when Lionel Richie wrote 3 Times a Lady, a slow ballad inspired by his parents' anniversary, the band and label weren't sure it was right for them. It was too soft, too romantic, too different from their established sound.
3 times a lady.
Motown released it anyway in June 1978, and initially it got a lukewarm reception. R&B stations didn't know what to do with it, and pop stations saw the Commodores as an R&B act. The song seemed stuck between formats, not quite fitting anywhere.
I love you.
But audiences didn't care about formats. They connected with the song's sincerity, Richie's vocal performance, and the simple, heartfelt message. 3 times a lady crossed over to pop radio, adult contemporary, even country. By August 1978, it was #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, staying there for 2 weeks.
Yes, you once, twice.
It became the Commodore's biggest hit and pointed the way toward Lionel Richie's future solo career as a balladeer. The song almost didn't get released because it was too different. Instead, that difference is exactly what made it successful.
3 times a lady.
Number 1, Everyday People, by Sly and the Family Stone. Sly and the Family Stone released Everyday People in November 1968. The song's message about unity and acceptance was powerful, and its funk soul groove was infectious. But its initial chart performance was modest. It took several weeks before radio really picked up on it. By early 1969, though, the song was everywhere. It hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in February 1969 and stayed there for 4 weeks. What started as a slow burner became one of the defining songs of the era, capturing the spirit of the late 60s better than almost anything else.
We got to live together.
The song's success proved that messages about social justice and equality could be commercially successful. Sly and the Family Stone's integrated band, with both black and white members, male and female, made the message even more powerful. Everyday People became an anthem, and its influence can be heard in countless songs that followed. It's technically from 1968, just barely making our 70s cutoff, but its impact was felt throughout the early 1970s. And its journey from modest release to #1 hit showed that sometimes the most important songs take time to find their place. Looking at these songs, some patterns emerge. Many of them were ahead of their time, needing audiences to catch up. Some benefited from the artist's growing fame, getting a second chance after the artist had proven themselves with other hits. A few just needed better promotion or a different version to connect. Dream On and Layla are both power ballads that were too soft for rock radio when they first came out. Maggie May and The Tears of a Clown were literally B-sides or album tracks that DJs and fans discovered on their own. I Want You to Want Me and Free Bird needed live versions or re-releases to show what they could really do. What's remarkable is how good these songs were from the beginning. The quality was always there. They just needed time, luck, or circumstance to reveal it. And once audiences found them, they stuck around. These aren't novelty hits that faded quickly. They became classics, songs that defined the decade and still get played today. One thing these songs share is persistence. The artists and labels didn't give up on them. Aerosmith kept pushing for Dream On, even after it flopped. Rod Stewart's label could have just moved on after Reason to Believe, but paid attention to what DJs were actually playing. Motown gave The Tears of a Clown another shot 3 years after recording it. In today's music industry, songs live or die in their first week. If streaming numbers aren't there immediately, labels move on to the next release. But in the 70s, songs could simmer for months or years before catching fire. Radio programmers would discover album tracks and turn them into hits. Word of mouth actually mattered. These second-chance hits also remind us that the music industry has never been great at predicting what audiences will love. Record executives chose Reason to Believe over Maggie May as an A-side. They thought Dream On was too soft. They didn't see the potential in Free Bird as a single. They were wrong every time. The flop-to-hit phenomenon created some of the 70s most enduring music. These songs have staying power because they earned their success. They weren't manufactured hits pushed by massive marketing budgets. They won over audiences organically, one listener at a time, one radio station at a time. That journey from failure to success also made these songs more meaningful. They represented underdogs succeeding, which is a story people love. When you know Dream On flopped initially, its eventual triumph feels more satisfying. When you learn Layla was from a failed album by a band that broke up, its classic status means more. These songs also prove that quality can overcome poor timing, bad marketing, or industry misjudgment. The great songs find their audience eventually. It might take weeks, months, or years. But if a song genuinely connects with people, it will survive. All 10 of these songs remain staples of classic rock radio. They're in movies, commercials, and TV shows. New generations discover them constantly, and knowing their backstories makes them even better. Every time you hear that opening piano on Dream On or those guitar notes on Layla, you're hearing a song that almost got forgotten. The 70s gave us an incredible amount of great music, but some of the best songs took the long way to success. They remind us that art doesn't always conform to schedules or expectations. Sometimes the best things need time to find their place. These flops turned hits changed the careers of the artists who made them. Aerosmith might not have become arena rock legends without Dream On. Rod Stewart's solo career might have taken a different path without Maggie May. Cheap Trick could have remained cult favorites instead of mainstream stars without I Want You to Want Me. But more than that, these songs enriched popular music. They gave us power ballads and rock anthems. They proved that DJs and fans sometimes know better than label executives, and they showed that a great song will find its audience eventually. The next time you hear one of these classics, remember that they all had to fight for their success. They weren't overnight hits. They were overlooked, dismissed, or just unlucky the first time around. But they got second chances, and they made the most of them. That's a hopeful message for anyone creating anything. Sometimes timing isn't right. Sometimes you're ahead of your audience. Sometimes the people in charge don't see what you see. But if what you've made is good, if it genuinely connects with people, it can survive initial failure and become something lasting. These 10 songs from the 70s did exactly that. They turned flops into hits, failures into triumphs, and forgotten tracks into classics. And in doing so, they gave us some of the best music the decade had to offer. If you enjoyed this look at songs that succeeded on their second try, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about the music that defined our generation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.